In this video, I'm going to talk about The Art of Rebellion by Suicidal Tendencies. The album was released on June 30th, 1992. It is celebrating its 30th anniversary. Suicidal Tendencies is a band that I've always liked since I was very young, a teenager. They were a crossover thrash band, but the lyrics always resonated with me as they often wrote about emotions and feelings. This is the first time I am dedicating a full video to this band, and it's a band that I should talk about more often. This might be my favorite album by the band, and it is a very experimental album. This was released in the middle of the grunge years, and a lot of people consider this to be like a grunge album. I think that they just experimented a little more with the sound on this one. There's some funk elements that started to use on their previous album, Lights Camera Revolution from 1990. And there's some more atmospheric sections and acoustic guitars. So I will be talking about this in more detail in the video. So at this time, the band was Mike Muir on vocals, Rocky George and Mike Clark on guitar, and Robert Trujillo on bass. And the album did not have an official drummer because their drummer, RJ Herrera, left the band right before the recording process. So they used a session drummer, and he was John Freese from the Vandals. So their drummer, RJ Herrera, he was eventually replaced by another drummer who was former Y&T and White Lion drummer, Jimmy DeGrasso. I think I actually just talked about him in a previous video. And he would actually stay in Suicidal Tendencies until 1995, when that band went on they kind of broke up for a while. So it's their longest album. It's about an hour long, and also their most successful. There was some like MTV rotation. They had some moderate radio play on alternative music stations, and this album was certified gold. So let's talk about the songs. The first song is Can't Stop, and it begins with some lead guitar playing, some softer acoustic guitar and bass playing, but it builds up with some thrashy guitars. The song's about handling your emotions when things are not going your way. The song has some great riffs with some really good vocals, and it's memorable, has a chorus that will stick in your head. Robert Trujillo's bass playing stands out very well on the song, as will the rest of the album. Mike Muir has a signature vocal style. He kind of goes back and forth between like talking and singing, and a lot of times he's just speaking his thoughts that are running through his mind. The song is a soft and atmospheric ending. Then there's Accept My Sacrifice. Next song is more of a classic suicidal sound. A little bit of like funk rock mixed in. This one has Mike Muir singing about his emotions. It's a heavy song. The bass playing really stands out. Mike Muir has kind of like this like falsetto style of singing. Some of the guitar soloing has like a Middle Eastern feel, and is mixed with like heavy and thrash metal riffs. Then there's Nobody Hears, and this was kind of like a minor hit. It's a song that balances heavy and light, which they do very well on this album. A song that I'm sure many people can relate to. So Mike Muir sings, Nobody Hears in the chorus. It's kind of like he's crying for help, and people are just telling him to get over it and deal with yourself. It's kind of common for young men to often be told to like man up and get over your sadness and depression, and it's not real. So that was my interpretation of the song, but it's a great song. It's melodic, it's memorable, and has some great guitar playing. I remember the song very well, and it was played on the radio and MTV on a regular basis. Then there's Tap Into the Power. Song's pretty cool. It's funky. It has some nice galloping guitar riffs. It's classic crossover punk song. Has a really cool bass guitar sound and some very thought-provoking lyrics. This is one of the more underrated songs on the album, and I hear a little psychedelic rock on the solos as well. Then there is Monopoly of Sorrow. This is probably the grungiest song on the album, with some clean power chords played in the intro. The song actually sounds like the Foo Fighters, even before the Foo Fighters even existed. It's more of a laid-back, melodic, atmospheric song. It has some elements of classic rock and psychedelic rock. The lyrics deal with emotions, like coping with anxiety and depression, and how sometimes people don't believe, that you can be hurting. They say like, you don't have a monopoly on sorrow. Sometimes it passes on to me too. So the vocals are great. It has a singing style. There's a faster part toward the end, and it makes it a very like a grungy song. Then there is We Call This Mother Revenge. It's a cool song. It has like an extended guitar solo in the intro and a softer, more atmospheric, intro. Then gets both heavy and funky as it moves along. This is more of like a classic Suicidal Tendencies type of a song. Has tempo changes, it's slow, it's emotional, and there's some heavy riffs. I Wasn't Meant to Feel Like This, Asleep at the Wheel. This is a song, it's very trippy and ambient. It has the slow and psychedelic intro. That was like the I Wasn't Meant to Feel Like This part of it. It's kind of like a dream sequence. And then the second part, Asleep at the Wheel, it's more of a slower paced grunge song, going back and forth between the grungy guitar parts and the psychedelic dream sequences. It's very different, a song that you will remember, and one of the songs that stands out in the album is just very different, kind of like grunge and psychedelic jazz. Gotta Kill Captain Stupid. This is just classic Suicidal Tendencies. It's thrash metal, the lyrics are humorous, it has heavy riffs, fast drum beat, vocals by Mike Muir. It kind of goes back and forth between the spoken vocals and the falsetto singing. There's some cool guitar solos, and this song will please fans of their classic style. As always, there are some great one-liners in the song, and this band likes to like drop like little bits of like advice in the song. So that's kind of like what I always liked about this band. I'll Hate You Better. They get a little softer on the song again, more of like an alternative rock song. It has a few heavy riffs, but mostly a rock song. It has melodic singing and some heavy power chords, but at the same time, the tone of the song is very upbeat and melodic. Which Way to Free. It's a heavy song, a slower thrash or doom metal style in the intro, but gets kind of funky as it moves into the first verse. Then there's some heavy thrash metal riffs as they go, back and forth between like heavy and softer falsetto vocals. It's Going Down. Another song reminded me of like the Foo Fighters at first. It's classic Suicidal, kind of leans more toward their punk rock side, and another alternative metal song. Where's the Truth? This is the last song of the album, kind of like punk rock mixed with some grunge. Mike Muir does a singing and speaking vocal style and some heavy parts in the song. And it's memorable. It just goes back and forth between the heavy and light. So in conclusion, back in the 90s, almost every major thrash metal band had their kind of like grunge album or alternative rock album. So bands like Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Exodus, and Creator have all put out those types of albums, and a lot of fans maybe like didn't like it, or don't think it was like the best of their career, or they would put that more towards like the bottom of their discography. But I think this band is like the exception to the rule. I mean, they really did it very well. I've never heard like fans say anything negative about this album. I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure there are fans who probably don't like it, but it's definitely a great album. I've always liked Suicidal Tendencies. They are like musical therapy. I mean, the lyrics are just really great to listen to, and they definitely like relate to maybe how you're feeling, especially if you're for like young adults. Like if you're like between the 18 and like 22 years old. It's just a really great band for that like age group, because it kind of like targets really kind of what you're going through. So up next, more anniversaries, some grunge, the single soundtrack. That's grunge, and Kiss with Love Gun. So thanks for watching. Please remember, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.